welcome back. Today I will be setting up my journal for February and I'm so excited about it. I didn't end up doing a plan with me video in January, so I thought I would start out by doing a little flip through of how my January spreads turned out. I ended up going with a very dreamy, wintry Swan Lake theme, and I really love how it turned out, so here's just a look at all of those spreads. I feel like towards the end of 2024 I was in a little bit of an art block and a rut, and I was having trouble coming up with themes that I actually like. I'm very happy to say that I have just been feeling so inspired and creative at the beginning of this year, so I'm really excited to share with you how my February spreads turned out. I ended up using mainly markers for this setup. I also used a little bit of craft paper, but I will make sure to list down below all of the specific colors and different marker brands and whatnot that I used. My theme for February will be strawberries, which I'm so excited about. I am absolutely obsessed with everything to do with strawberries, so this theme just makes me very happy, hence why I've done it many times before. I think the first strawberry theme I did was in February of 2022, I believe, and I remember for so long that was one of my favorite setups that I ever did. I also did a strawberry sweets theme in, I think, August of 2023. And then the latest strawberry theme that I did was for my New Year spreads in 2024, so as you can see, this is just one of my favorite themes to do, a very reliable one, and I always love the result as well. I have a beautiful strawberry washi tape, which I'll use in some of my later spreads. That was also definitely an inspiration. And then I was also very inspired by a book cover that I saw. I don't think this book is actually out yet. It's a 2025 new release, but I just thought that the strawberry illustrations on this cover were so beautiful and I felt instantly inspired to do something like that. Anyway, for my cover page, I am keeping it pretty simple, though I do introduce a more fun element in a second. But for now, I'm just drawing out a couple different strawberry clusters in the corner that were inspired by the illustrations on the book cover. I also added a little trellis, which I feel like I did so many times in 2024, and that was just one of my favorite things to do. I do love adding borders and frames and that sort of thing to my spreads. After I have drawn out the basic outline of the strawberry clusters, I decided to basically cut around them and create a little bit of a frame situation to make this spread a little bit more visually interesting and interactive. So far this year, I've been having so much fun including more interactive and 3D elements into my journal. I did some opening doors for my New Year setup, I did like a little window mirror in my January setup, and I definitely wanted to continue that trend into February because I just think it's so fun to make like little cutouts, little tabs, all those sorts of things, so that is what I'm doing for this page. Now that I finished cutting out the frame on this page, I'm just going to go back and finish coloring in all of the strawberry cluster doodles, adding some color, adding some dimension. Speaking of colors, like I said at the beginning, I'll go ahead and list down below all these specific shades and markers that I'm using, but I really wanted the color palette for this month to be very pastel and very dainty looking, so I went with some of my lightest shades within my marker collection because I just wanted it to be very light and also maybe a little bit Valentine's Day-esque as well. I think it's always fun to create seasonal and holiday festive inspired spreads, which I think is why I've really just enjoyed doing some sort of strawberry theme in February before, because I feel like it's a very natural way to incorporate lots of pink into my spreads. Pink is my favorite color, so I love any excuse to include pink in my spreads, and especially after doing like a very blue theme in January, I'm very excited to go back to something a little bit more familiar to me. And then to finish off this drawing, I actually went in with my favorite white gel pen to add the strawberry seeds, which I feel like is just one of those little touches that makes a very big difference to the overall look of the spread. I also went back and added some vines around the trellis, which again I feel like just kind of tied everything together, added a little bit of whimsy to the page as well. Now that the strawberry page is done, it is time to work on this back page, which will be showing through to the front. I decided to keep it pretty simple. Honestly, this entire setup is very simple, but I'm basically just drawing out like a gingham or plaid. I'm honestly not entirely sure what the difference is. I think this maybe is more gingham, which is a very easy pattern to do in a journal, especially one that has dots. So I'm basically just following all the dots, using a couple different colors and just layering them and crossing them and creating this gingham design. I feel like the gingham pattern just naturally goes very well with strawberries because of strawberry jams and jellies and whatnot, so I think it's just a really great aspect to introduce to match with the strawberries. The last step for my cover page is to add my February title, of course, and I'm also keeping it pretty simple. I'm just using a piece of scrapbook paper and ripping it up into like a little name plaque shape, and then I'm just going in with my gold gel pen to do a very simple cursive February. That is pretty much it for my cover page though. Let's move on to my next spread, which is my habit tracker. So far, 2025 in my bullet journal has been a little bit of a year of experimentation. I'm still trying to figure out which spreads are really important to me to include in my monthly setups, which ones I kind of want to leave behind. So a lot of things are experimenting and changing from month to month. I will say though, I'm really happy with how my January spreads turned out. I think that general setup just worked really well for me. Only using a habit tracker, a monthly log, a couple other spreads, and then my weeklies is kind of just what I stuck with, and I found that really helpful. I also tried out a new way to do my habit tracker in January, which also just worked really well for me. I would say this is a little bit more reminiscent of like a year in pixels type style, where basically there is a different grid for every single day of the month. I think I ended up going with maybe 4 different habits. I think I might have done a couple more in January, but I really just wanted to kind of hone in on 4 and really focus on them and hopefully get those habits down. The other nice thing about this particular habit tracker layout is that it leaves a lot of extra space, which is really nice, especially for this journal, which is still a little bit smaller than what I'm used to, not quite a full A5 size. So it is nice that there is a lot of extra space for me to add some decorations. On the left-hand side, I added more of that kind of gingham print, mostly because it's just really fun and I love the way it looks. And then on the right-hand side, I just added a couple more strawberry cluster doodles. I also used a tan tombow dual brush pen this month, which you also see later when I do my monthly tracker, and I think this is another way to just make the spread feel very cohesive and dainty. I think if I were to use my black gel pen like I typically do, it would just look a little bit jarring, so this is just another way to keep all of my spreads looking very cohesive. And then to finish off this habit tracker page, I'm just adding some numbers to the side, that way I kind of know which square correlates with each day of the month. And then I'm also adding a couple little like icon doodles at the top of each bar, that way I know which habit I'm tracking. I also added a title with, again, my gold gel pen in a very simple cursive font, and that is it for my habit tracker. One spread that I am, I guess, reincorporating into my bullet journal this year is my monthly log page. I think I stopped using a monthly log, I don't know, at some point in 2024, and I'm very happy that it's back because I found that I actually really value the spread and it just helps me plan out my month just a lot more, especially in a more kind of visual way to see when certain things are, and I can kind of plan my individual days and weeks around that. I think the grid spacing for this monthly log was 6x6 if you're interested, and I really like that. It just gives me a lot of space to write down certain things beyond tracking like events and birthdays and appointments and that sort of thing. I also have been using this page to track my content as well, to kind of plan out my Instagram posts and when I want to upload certain videos, and I've also just been finding that really helpful as well. Beyond a monthly log and a habit tracker, I still don't entirely know what I want my monthly spreads to comprise of. I do feel like there is something missing. There are a couple more spreads that maybe I will experiment with this year. So what I did is I actually created a little tab on the side. That way there is like a little flap almost into the next 2 pages, which for now I'm going to leave empty, but I will probably fill those up with something throughout the month, even if it's just like a little brain dump space. I'm not entirely sure what those spreads are going to be used for yet, but I do know that I like to have a little bit of extra room at the end of my monthly setups. This is also where the pretty strawberry washi tape comes in. I'm just obsessed with it. It's so pretty to look at and I think just really matches with this theme. So I also use that on the side to give the tabs a little bit of decoration as well. For the monthly spread, I am also using that light Tombow dual brush pen color just to give it a little bit more of a dainty outline. I then went in with one of my pink Crayola super tips and just did some like little dots on the left corner of each of the boxes where I will write down the dates for every day of the month of February. And then I did actually have a decent amount of empty space for this calendar shape, which really just depends on the month, but that is where I'm including the title again with the ripped craft paper and the gold cursive. I did have a little bit of extra space left, which was nice, and so I just decided to fill in the extra space with a couple more strawberry doodles. And that is it for my monthly log page. I've also started using a little bit of like a color code system when it comes to my weekly spreads and in my monthly spreads as well. So I pick out a couple different colors at the beginning of each month that will signify like when I want to upload a video, when I want to post on Instagram. Sometimes I'll also track the specific book that I'm reading in a day. So what I'm doing now is I'm going in with a couple different highlighter colors and basically just creating like a little space for the certain days that I want videos to go up, certain days that I want to post on Instagram, and I feel like this is just a really nice way to plan out my content and other things for the month. I do love color coding and any excuse to add more color and more pink to my spreads, so this has just been working really well for me so far. Alright, that is pretty much it for my February setup. I love how it turned out, and I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I know this setup wasn't anything crazy or too complicated. Like I said, still trying to figure out what spreads I'm hoping to include in my setup. Thank you so much for watching though, and I will see you very soon in next week's video.